The instant my shoes hit the carpet inside the Northbrook Country Club banquet hall in Evanston, I felt like turning around and heading straight back to the parking lot. The place was drowning in crystal chandeliers and men in tailored suits. You could smell old money in the air, polished and perfumed, like the room itself was bragging. Jennifer looked stunning in her navy blue dress. She had Tyler's little hand in hers while he kept pulling at that cheap clip-on tie he already hated. I leaned down and muttered, "This is insane. Why are we even here?" My eyes scanned the crowd, restless. Jennifer crouched gracefully, fixing our boy's collar with that calm, motherly touch she always had. She whispered to him, "Ice cream after this?" Tyler's head bobbed fast, like she had just promised him a trip to the moon. Before we continue, please subscribe to stay updated on our latest stories. The invitation had said we were attending Tara Harrison's wedding, but the real reason we showed up was business. Jennifer's company, VitalCore Medical, the orthopedic implant firm she worked for, had ties to the hospital where the groom practiced. Jennifer figured it would be good networking. I figured it was a bad idea. And then I saw her, mid-toast, across the room. The bride turned, and the air dropped out of me like I had been punched. Rebecca, my sister, gone from my life for 12 years. I had not laid eyes on her since the day my family threw me out. I was 24 then, broke, standing in the rain with a beat-up suitcase and no plan. Standing there in that banquet hall, I felt like a ghost crashing her own funeral. Rebecca's eyes landed on me. They widened. Her champagne glass shook in her hand. And then our parents noticed me. Dad moved first, that stiff politician's smile plastered on his face as if cameras were watching. He started toward me with slow but deliberate steps. Mom followed close behind, lips pressed so tight they disappeared into her skin. Her words came out like a hiss, just sharp enough for the table beside us to freeze mid-bite. "What are you doing here?" I wanted to answer, but my throat locked shut. That old memory slammed me hard. Me on the porch, drenched, humiliated, begging to be let in. Her flipping off the porch light without a word. Jennifer stepped forward before I could. Her voice stayed calm, but it carried across the room. "My husband is on the guest list. VitalCore Medical was invited by Dr. Michael Harrison himself." She did not blink once. The name dropped like a stone in water. A few doctors nearby turned their heads. I heard one whisper, "VitalCore Medical? The spinal monitoring system company?" Recognition rippled through the crowd, and then the groom, Michael Harrison, worked his way over. Tall man, surgical posture, that false humility wealthy surgeons wear like an expensive aftershave. His grin wilted when he saw Rebecca's pale face. "You know the founder of VitalCore Medical?" he asked my parents. Rebecca's jaw tightened. She had never told him. She had erased me from her life. I forced a smile. "Hey, Mel, congratulations." Her expression barely flickered, just a twitch in her eye. Michael frowned, confused. "Rebecca told me her brother dropped out of college." That hit me, but I swallowed it. "I did not. I finished trade school while working nights," I said evenly. "Then I built a company." On the surface, I stayed calm, but inside, my chest shook, not from fear, but from holding back everything I wanted to say. Tyler tugged on my sleeve. "Dad, is that lady your friend?" he asked in that innocent voice. Rebecca flinched like he had slapped her. Michael blinked at her. I saw his whole demeanor shift. For the first time, he really looked at me, like he was putting the pieces together. Rebecca's perfect posture sagged just slightly, her pearls catching less light than before. The fairy tale cracked, and for once I was not the one desperate to leave. The air thickened. Not noisy, just heavy, like a spotlight had swung our way. The wedding had turned into an operating room, and all eyes were locked on our table. Jennifer played it cool, sipping champagne, her gaze darting through the room, scanning, calculating. She leaned toward an older gentleman in a charcoal gray suit and whispered something. He chuckled and clapped her on the back. "No way. You are with VitalCore Medical?" he asked. "We have been using your spinal monitoring systems for a year now. Cut our intensive care unit stays by 28%. He turned to me. "You are the man who designed the first-generation boards, right?" I nodded. "Yeah, and the fail-safe firmware after those rollout problems." His face lit up like I had handed him cash. "You saved us $500,000 in readmission costs. Presbyterian Hospital owes you a beer." Jennifer kept the conversation moving smoothly, like none of us were standing in the middle of a family landmine. But I knew what she was watching too. Rebecca, across the room, circled by physicians in tuxedos and evening gowns, trying to look composed while beads of sweat gathered above her lip. She raised her chin and said, "It is part of my ongoing work in anterior cervical discectomy. We are reviewing long-term outcomes with a slightly adjusted technique." That was when a young woman in a deep green dress spoke up, curious and skeptical. "Wait, wasn't that protocol retired by the National Institutes of Health 4 years ago?" Rebecca blinked, then laughed a little too loudly, the sound breaking like glass. "There's a lot of debate in the field," Rebecca tried, forcing her voice steady. "No, there is not," another doctor cut in flatly. "That trial was shut down for safety reasons. Nobody uses that model anymore." Her smile grew wider, the way a person's smile does when they are trying not to sink. From where I stood, I watched Michael's face change. His hands slipped from her waist. He did not look angry, just thrown off and maybe embarrassed. He stayed silent, listening longer than was comfortable. Mom caught it too. She swept through the crowd with that polished speed she used at fundraisers, fake grace clicking back into place. "Rebecca was a standout during her time at Johns Hopkins Medical School," she announced, voice raised just enough for nearby tables to hear. "She has always been ahead of the curve." Jennifer turned her head slowly and gave a polite, tooth-showing smile. "Which program was it?" she asked. "We run yearly mentorships with the Johns Hopkins medical interns. My team never saw Rebecca's name on any of the cohorts." The silence that followed was short but brutal, like a door slamming. Then the whispers started. From the dessert table, a woman leaned toward her husband. "Didn't they say her brother failed out?" she murmured. "Thought he vanished years ago." I did not flinch. I was done being polite. "I worked 3 jobs," I said clearly. Not shouting, just cutting through the noise. Put myself through community college and then night school. Never saw a single dime from the family's education fund. A representative from Atlanta Spine Institute, a big man with a badge clipped to his pocket, nodded once. "That is grit." "More than I can say for half the pre-med students I interview," someone near the bar added. I watched Rebecca freeze. Her shoulders were too high, her smile too wide. Nothing about her looked real anymore. Jennifer moved up beside me, not pushing, just steadying the room, and asked the Presbyterian surgeon, "How is the integration on the second phase alert system?" "Clean," he said, eyes flicking back to me. "Honestly, I do not know why we waited so long to partner. Your data is tight." Rebecca was still fielding questions from 2 doctors who looked genuinely puzzled. One of them said, "You are not board certified in neurosurgery, right?" "No," she answered quickly. "I consult on post-operative recovery. It is a hybrid role." "Where do you practice?" "My work is more research-oriented right now," she said, already retreating. Michael stared at her like he was seeing a stranger. Mom tried to rescue her again. "Rebecca has always been modest about her work," she offered. "Right," I muttered. "That is one word for it." Then I felt a tug on my jacket. Tyler was standing there wide-eyed, stretching up on his toes. "Can I have some cake now?" I looked down at him, his little hands still gripping my sleeve like he was afraid I might disappear. "Yeah, buddy," I said. "Let's go get some." We stepped away, but I did not need to look back to feel the change behind me. The center of the room had shifted. The buzz had moved. The story everyone was trading now was not about the wedding. It was about us. Rebecca had built herself a tower out of paper, and tonight the air finally started moving. I walked Tyler to the dessert table, let him pile frosting and sugar onto his plate, and gave Jennifer a quick nod before slipping out. I could not stand in that room another minute with all those eyes bouncing between me and Rebecca like we were museum exhibits. My shirt collar felt too tight, my skin too hot. I moved down the side hall toward the restrooms, needing air more than I needed a mirror. The second I pushed open the men's room door, I stopped. She was already there. Rebecca stood at the sink, blotting her eyes with a paper towel, mascara smudged. Her hands trembled when she caught my reflection in the mirror. She did not look like a bride. She looked like a woman hanging off the edge of a cliff by her fingernails. She did not speak at first, just stared, waiting for me to leave. I did not. "Why are you doing this?" she hissed. I shut the door behind me. "Doing what?" "Do not play dumb. You were not supposed to come back. You were gone." Her voice cracked, then sharpened again. "You were the dropout. I leaned against the counter, arms crossed, watching her unravel in real time. No, I just was not worth the tuition money, remember? She turned to face me fully now, eyes red, breath shallow. They told me if I wanted Stanford, they could not afford to split it. That is what it came down to. One kid got the money. They gave it to me. No kidding, I said. You think I did not know? You think I did not hear them whisper about investing where it matters when they thought I was asleep on the couch? She flinched like I had hit her, but I was not yelling. I was just done pretending I had not seen it all the first time. They said you would not finish, she muttered. Said you had no plan. I did not have money, I said. That is different. Her jaw clenched. She dropped her eyes to her heels like maybe they held the answers she could not find. Then she let out this bitter, shaky breath. I never even wanted to be a doctor, she said. She paused, shaking her head, catching herself. I wanted the image. I wanted people to look at me and believe I mattered. I stood there and let the silence make her sit with it. Then I said, and I just wanted to build something real, something that worked. She stepped back, her whole body trembling now like she could not hold the mask together any longer. You do not understand, she whispered. I was scared. You were always better at making things happen. People liked you. I knew the second you figured out how to use that, you would leave me behind. Something shifted inside me. It was not pity. It was something sharper, cleaner. Clarity. Because standing in front of me was not a woman with power. It was someone who had spent her whole adult life covering up a lie that started when she was 19, terrified she would never be enough. You were right to be scared, I told her. My voice stayed low, steady. It did not need volume. She turned back to the sink, scrubbing at her face like smudged mascara could be wiped away along with the truth. Her mouth opened like she wanted to keep going, but nothing came out. I moved to the sink beside hers, turned on the water, and washed my hands slowly. The silence stretched between us, heavy, loaded with 12 years of absence, and a room full of people who had finally started seeing her for who she was. You are going to destroy me, she whispered. No, I said, drying my hands one deliberate stroke at a time. You did that yourself. All I did was show up. When I walked out of that bathroom, Jennifer and Tyler were waiting by a row of coat hooks. Jennifer did not ask what happened. She did not need to. Tyler looked up at me with frosting smeared across his cheeks and plate in hand. Mom said we can leave soon. You done? Jennifer slid her hand through the crook of my arm and gave it a gentle squeeze. Ready when you are. I glanced back down the hall, but felt no anger. Not even the bitter satisfaction I thought might come. Just calm. The kind of calm that shows up when you finally stop expecting anything from someone who never had your back in the first place. Yeah, I said. Let's go. We stepped back into the reception just as the string quartet switched from Bach to some light, fancy number I could not even name. Nobody was dancing. The food tables stood half abandoned. The buzz in the room had shifted. It was not at the cake table or around the expensive centerpiece drowning in white roses. It was circling us. Doctors in tuxedos and hospital executives in cocktail dresses drifted closer, polite but intent, like bees finding a hive they had not known was there. One of them, a short, stocky woman with a Mercy badge and a glass of red wine, leaned in. I heard you are the brains behind Vital Core Medical, she asked. Jennifer answered before I could. He built the core architecture. I ran the deployment and integration. We are expanding into implant diagnostics this quarter. The woman lifted her brows. Real-time calibration? Down to micron-level feedback, I said. Early trials are already showing a 15% jump in surgical precision. That turned more heads. A younger man in a gray blazer stepped forward. You are adding that into the monitoring suite too? Eventually, Jennifer said. But first we are launching it as a diagnostic module. Low friction. Michael was there now, right behind them. Silent, focused, not smiling. He was not searching for Rebecca anymore. He was listening like someone had finally turned the lights on in a dark room. Rebecca hovered at the edge, her bride's smile stretched too thin, trying to wedge herself back into the conversation. A few guests gave her courtesy glances. So, which Johns Hopkins program were you in again? A woman asked. Rebecca looked straight at Jennifer, then at me. It was a specialized research track, not part of the standard cohort. That is odd, another guest said. My niece was in their spine fellowship 3 years ago. She would have known you. I was not in that exact group, Rebecca rushed out. It was adjacent. A partner track. Her voice quivered. The polished, confident bride was gone. In her place was someone cornered, holding a champagne flute like it was the only thing keeping her standing. Then Dad stepped in, cutting across the crowd with his old, practiced stride. He wrapped an arm around Rebecca, voice edged with authority. Let's not drag this into old history, he declared. This is Rebecca's big day. We should be celebrating her and Michael. His eyes landed on Michael like he was waiting for backup. We do not want to lose focus, Dad pressed, pushing harder. Let's bring it back to Rebecca, not, his hand waved toward me, dismissive. All this. Michael still did not move. No smile, no nod, no agreement. A hard silence spread across the room like a spill no one wanted to clean up. Tyler tugged at my sleeve again, his small voice too loud for the quiet. Dad? Is she still your sister? I dropped to one knee and looked him in the eye. She's related to me, I told him softly, but family is something different. My father's face went red immediately. His hand slipped off Rebecca's shoulder. You cannot just show up after 12 years and act like you belong here, he snapped. I straightened, taller than him now, heavier too. I did not just show up. I was invited. Jennifer's company was invited, and I built a life you never thought I could. The temperature in the room seemed to drop. Jennifer stayed silent. She simply reached into her clutch and handed me the envelope we had brought, our insurance policy if the evening turned ugly. It was not a scheme. It was a statement. I stepped past my father and went straight to Michael. Congratulations again, I said, handing him the envelope. He opened it carefully, reading the contents. His expression flickered as his eyes moved over the words. Inside was a certificate, one symbolic share of Vital Core Medical Incorporated, granted as a professional courtesy. You are offering me a token, I said. No strings, just recognition. Welcome to the next chapter. Michael looked at me, then back at Rebecca. His jaw tightened. I could see the storm starting behind his eyes. He was not angry yet, just realizing how much had been hidden from him. Rebecca reached for his arm. Michael? He stepped away from her touch without looking at her. I did not need to linger. The shift was already happening. Michael had heard the conversations, watched her dodge questions, seen the hesitation. Doubt had rooted itself. The moment was past saving. Rebecca's hand hung in midair, forgotten. My father opened his mouth like words might appear, but nothing came. He stared at me, and what filled his eyes was not rage. It was fear. Fear that the version of me they had tried to erase had not only survived, but had surpassed them. I walked back to Jennifer and Tyler, buttoning my jacket as I went. No strut, no victory lap. I did not need one. Behind me, Rebecca stared at the floor like it might open up. She was no longer in control, and she knew it. A month later, the wedding felt like a memory from another life. The chaos, the whispers, Rebecca's frozen face. All of it had faded into background noise. My world had moved forward. I was in my office on the 37th floor of the Madison Plaza Tower, finalizing a contract with Cedars-Sinai Medical Center on the West Coast. Big deal. Jennifer had built the pitch deck. I had closed the technical gaps. Our legal team was finishing the licensing clauses. The numbers looked solid. Projections were up. For the first time in years, I could breathe without waiting for something to collapse. Jennifer was at a spine symposium in Denver. Tyler had baseball practice after school. He was playing second base now, thinking about shortstop. I had promised we would practice in the yard after dinner. That morning, he had packed his own lunch and reminded me not to miss his game next week. I had not. I never did. The knock on my door was sharp, but not hurried. My assistant poked her head in. Doctor, Michael Harrison is here. No appointment. Should I tell him to come back? I stared at her for a moment, then nodded. Send him in. Michael came in, looking like a man who had not slept for days. His posture slumped, the cocky surgeon aura gone. His suit was wrinkled, collar crooked, eyes dull like someone had shut off the light inside. He sat down before I told him to. Everything Rebecca told me was a lie, he said. No build-up. He just dropped it on the floor between us. She never went to Stanford. She never had a fellowship. She lied about the clinic, said she was managing the books, said she had it all under control. I stayed quiet. She did not, he said. Not even close. He dragged a hand through his hair, leaning forward, elbows on his knees like the weight in his chest was pulling him down. "There is billing fraud," he said finally. "Your parents' practice. Worse than I imagined." That made me straighten, but I still did not move from the window. My hands clenched behind my back, pressed to the ledge. She handled some of the accounts herself, for years apparently. I went through old files, payments from insurance companies that never reached the official ledgers, double billing, ghost appointments. It is all there, 15 years of it. I stared at the skyline, keeping still. I did not want to believe it, Michael went on. But once I started digging, it was too clear. She knew exactly what she was doing. I turned back toward him. "How much did you know before the wedding?" His mouth twitched, then flattened. "Not enough. Not the parts that mattered." He leaned back in the chair, legs stretched out like he had finally reached the point where pride did not matter anymore. "I hired a lawyer," he said. "I am filing for annulment. There is nothing left to save. Everything we had was built on lies." I let the words hang, said nothing. Let the silence do the work. "I am not here to ask you for anything," he added after a while. "I'm not asking for your help. I figured you should know." But he did not mean that. Not entirely. The question was there in the air whether he admitted it or not. He wanted me to throw him something, advice, a piece of direction, maybe even a scrap of the wreckage he could balance on. I gave him nothing. "I am not stepping back into that mess," I told him. "Not again." He nodded slowly, staring down at his hands like they were foreign to him. "I get it," he said quietly. "You already won." I studied him. He was not angry. He was hollow, scraped out from the inside like reality had sanded him down to the bone. "I thought I knew who she was," he said. "Turns out I did not." I shrugged. "She does not even know who she is." He pushed himself up from the chair. "Thanks for your time." Out of habit, I stepped forward and shook his hand. His palm was damp and weak, like the whole frame that used to hold his world together had melted away. At the door, he hesitated. "And I am sorry, for what it is worth. Sorry I believed what they said about you." "I stopped needing an apology a long time ago," I told him. He nodded once, then left without another word. The door clicked shut behind him. I turned back to the window, watching the city stretch out in every direction. I felt no satisfaction, no relief. Just pity. Not for him exactly. Not even for her. For the whole damn story. A family that sold its future to protect a lie, and a man who bought it because the wrapping looked right. I slid Tyler's schedule across my desk, circled his Saturday game, and shot Jennifer a quick message about the contract. Then I put Michael Harrison out of my mind. Later that afternoon, I was standing on the train platform waiting for Tyler's practice to finish when my phone buzzed. No big banner, just a quiet vibration and a bold subject line in my inbox. Re. Ongoing Medicare audit, request for testimony. I opened it without hesitation. It came from a federal investigator with the Office of Inspector General. The language was plain, no threats, no theatrics, just a request. They were building a case on multiple Medicare fraud complaints tied to my parents' practice. The dates went back 15 years. They had partial records, but needed corroboration. Someone close to the books, someone who had been there. They already knew I had worked in that office. They already knew I had seen things. I did not reply right away. I stood on that platform while trains came and went, screens lighting up around me, and I just kept rereading the email. I did not feel nervous. I did not feel angry. It was flatter than that, colder, like the fire had already burned itself out years ago. That evening, I sat in the bleachers with Jennifer while Tyler stepped up to bat. The August air was heavy, humid, pressing down on the field. Kids' jerseys clung to them. Bats clinked against the fence like metal wind chimes. I watched Tyler adjust his helmet, tap the plate twice, then glance our way like he was checking to see if we were still there. We were. We always were. Jennifer leaned her head onto my shoulder, soft but steady. "You not owe them anything," she murmured. I nodded slowly. She was right. But she also knew me well enough to realize that was not the end of it, because silence would not do either. Not for the patients. Not for the elderly who thought they were being cared for. Not for the interns roped into clerical fraud without even realizing it. Not for the nurses who had walked away quietly because speaking out would have cost them everything. I remembered those ledgers, the mismatched totals, the overwritten numbers. I had been 17, working after school just to earn gas money. I had not understood it then, but I did now. The next morning, I opened my old cloud archive, the one I had not touched in years, and pulled out every monthly report I had saved. I had not known why I kept them back then. Maybe because deep down I never trusted the system. I attached the files as PDF documents. No explanation, no commentary, no speeches, no explanations, just the documents. I pressed send. No press releases, no social media posts, no whispered leaks to reporters. Only quiet damage, the kind that does not echo, but does not fade either. A few hours later, the first voicemail landed. It was from Rebecca, though she did not use that name anymore. "It is Grace," the message began, like that word still carried value. Her voice was tight, too polite, but I could hear the panic hiding under the surface. She wanted to talk, claimed she was struggling, mentioned legal troubles, hinted she might need a short-term loan to steady things. The tone stayed syrupy sweet all the way through. I watched the transcript scroll across my screen, then swiped it away without hitting play. The next day came another message. The sweetness was gone. Her voice now carried an edge. She still asked for money, but this time she slipped in a warning. A line about how Tyler deserved to know the whole truth. The transcript had it bolded like she thought the words would land heavy. I archived it instantly. No pause, no hesitation. By the weekend, the third voicemail hit. It came in right after Tyler's game. He had crushed a double, sprinted the bases like his feet barely touched dirt, and jogged off beaming, glove in hand, asking if we could grab milkshakes on the way home. We were sitting in the car when it buzzed. Windows rolled down, engine humming, the night air thick with sweat, dust, and summer heat. The transcript popped up. She did not even bother with pretense this time. The software garbled a few phrases, but enough came through. Threats of lawsuits, accusations of defamation, claims I had slandered her, manipulated Michael, hijacked the company's spotlight for revenge. I pressed down on the notification, muted the thread forever. No sound, no vibration, nothing. Then I set the phone in the console and turned toward Tyler. "Chocolate or vanilla?" I asked. He grinned without a second thought. "Twist." Jennifer smiled from the passenger seat. "Of course." We pulled out, heading toward Pete's on Clark. Windows open, warm summer air rolling in, carrying the smell of sunscreen mixed with the dust from Tyler's cleats still grinding against the floorboard. I did not need Rebecca's voice in my head anymore. Not her threats, not her twisted version of who she thought I was. I already knew who I was. More importantly, my son knew it too. Tyler did not care about resumes or medical programs. He did not care who lied or who cracked under pressure. What mattered to him was that I showed up, that I kept my word, that every time he looked over his shoulder, I was still there. And when Jennifer reached across the seat to rest her hand on mine, I realized something I should have known all along. Her smile, that calm, steady curve that only ever asked me for the truth, was the only approval I had ever needed. Rebecca could burn herself out trying to keep the lies alive. I had already walked away. 6 months later, our backyard was torn up with half-planted rows, plastic buckets, and tomato seedlings that Tyler swore were taller than yesterday. He wore a Cubs cap, dirt smeared across his cheeks, a cheap plastic shovel in his grip. Jennifer crouched beside him, tying off rows of twine with surgeon-like precision. I leaned against the fence, jeans stained at the knees, holding a glass of lemonade, just watching my family move in sync without needing a single word from me. The quiet was different now. Not silence, just the kind of peace where nothing was waiting to blow up. No investigators, no lawyers, no voicemails I did not want to hear. Just a kid laughing because he found a worm and a woman humming along to whatever song was playing on her phone. Inside the house, my phone buzzed. Not a call, an alert. Presbyterian Hospital's board had signed off on our surgical automation suite. That made 5 major hospitals this quarter: St. Mary's, Riverbend, Indianapolis General, and 2 more. We were ahead of schedule. The install crew would be flying out on Monday. I looked back at Tyler, squinting into the sun as he jabbed his shovel into the dirt. "You're helping people heal faster, Dad," he said, like it was the simplest truth in the world. I ruffled his hair. "Only because you mapped out the tomato rows," I said. He grinned and went right back to digging. Later that afternoon, the mail came. A manila envelope. Certified. No return address, but I knew the handwriting. Too tight, too neat, still trying to control the story. I opened it on the porch while Jennifer and Tyler rinsed off the tools. Inside was a single sheet of lined paper written by hand. She did not start with excuses. Not this time. She called herself Rebecca again. She admitted everything. The fake school records, the credentials, the billing schemes. She wrote that Michael had filed for annulment, that the clinic was shuttered, that our parents had stepped away, too old and too afraid to face what was coming. She did not ask for forgiveness. She did not even ask me to answer. It read like a woman who had finally stopped running because there was nowhere left to go. Jennifer walked up the steps, gloves streaked with mud, the sunlight catching her hair. She looked at me, then the letter, and waited. "I am not replying," I said. She nodded once. "Good." I went inside, opened my laptop, and pulled up the application for Path Forward Health's Reentry Internship Program. It was designed for former healthcare workers with black marks or unfinished certifications, second chances for anyone willing to earn their way back. I did not write a cover note, just a reference letter. 2 paragraphs, plain and direct. I signed it, scanned it, and attached it. Then I mailed the original page back with it. Not mercy, just a path. She could take it or leave it. That part was not mine to decide. A few weeks later, I was in Kansas City at a healthcare innovation expo. Jennifer had her booth, and I was sitting on a panel about post-operative recovery tech. Afterward, I wandered the vendor floor, virtual reality rehab software, artificial intelligence wound assessments, 3-dimensional printed nerve guides, builders everywhere starting fresh. And then I saw her. She was sitting in the back row of a workshop called Introduction to Medical Coding Compliance. No pearls, no elaborate hairstyle, just plain slacks, a blouse, a notebook open in front of her, pen in hand, backpack at her feet, watching, listening. She did not see me at first. Then her eyes lifted. We locked eyes. She did not turn away, did not stand, just gave me a small nod. Not proud, not ashamed, just simple. I nodded back. That was enough. Then I walked past her row. I did not break stride. I did not need another word from her. I did not need her to change or collapse or prove herself. I had already made my choice about who I was. Whatever path she took from here on was hers alone. That night, back at the hotel, I called Tyler to say goodnight. He told me he and Jennifer had named the tomato plants. "Tomato Jordan," he announced proudly. I laughed, told him I missed him. He shot back that I had better be home in time to water them or they would die from emotional neglect. I promised I would. By morning, I was back in the Vital Core Medical Conference Room. Floor-to-ceiling windows, legal pads laid out, Jennifer across from me, hair tied back, reading glasses perched on her nose. Our chief financial officer, Jerome, already had the numbers up on the big screen. The math checked out. The board was aligned. No delays. No red tape. "This is personal," I said, tapping the folder in front of me. "Not for press. Not for branding. Not for public relations spin." Jennifer gave me that half smile of hers. "It still changes lives," she said. Jerome traced a column with his finger. "We can cover 20 full scholarships each year, tuition, stipends, relocation support, and a guaranteed entry role at Vital Core Medical. No clawbacks, no hidden traps." "Good," I told him. "That is the line. No strings." He glanced up. "What do we call it?" I looked at Jennifer. She stayed quiet. She already knew. "The Bennett Medical First Gen Fund," I said. "No legacy names, no tributes, just mine, reclaimed." It was the first time I had spoken my name in a room full of professionals without hesitation. Bennett. For years, it had felt like a scar, a reminder of being tossed out and branded a failure. Now it felt earned. By noon, we had the framework. Jerome would finalize the legal structure. Jennifer would run the mentorship program. Applications would open in spring. Every student chosen would sit at our table, inside the labs, inside the strategy rooms, helping shape the next wave of surgical systems. No prestige admissions, no old money shortcuts, just grit and determination. It was my quiet reply to what they had tried to take from me. Education, opportunity, the belief I could be more than a burden. That evening, I drove home with the windows down, summer air thick but alive. Tyler sat at the table sketching with crayons, a robot with way too many arms. Jennifer slid me a plate of pasta and squash. "Eat before it goes cold," she said, and, like always, left the silence open. When Tyler finished his food, I told him, "We are starting something new," I said. "A scholarship?" he asked, squinting. "Like helping kids who never got a fair chance?" He leaned on his elbows. Helping kids like you, Dad? I smiled. Yeah, exactly like me. He nodded, serious. Then it's going to be good. Later, after he ran off to build his contraption, I checked my phone in my office. One last voicemail from Rebecca. No transcript, just her name flashing across the screen. No preview. Only the play button. I pressed delete. No hesitation. That was the last thread. Forgiveness was never required. Peace did not need her permission. I had already moved on, and nothing she could ever say would pull me back. I walked into the hallway. Jennifer was folding towels, humming to herself. Tyler shouted something about rubber bands from his room. Hey, I said. She looked up. I pulled her in close, tight, quiet, the kind of hug that does not need a reason. I did not add anything else. I did not have to. We had already built something better. Months later, the ballroom at the Philadelphia Healthcare Innovation Summit buzzed with polished shoes and the low drone of people trying to outsound each other. Panels stacked on 3 floors. Jennifer and I had flown in the night before, and I had not sat still since breakfast. Vital Core Medical had been nominated for the National Advancement in Surgical Technology Award. I did not expect to win. I figured one of the biotech giants with billion-dollar artificial intelligence projects would take it, but they called our name. I walked to the stage under the lights, applause rising around me, shook hands, accepted the glass plaque. Simple, clean. I did not give a speech when they handed me the award. No victory lap. It was just work finally being seen. Later, I sat on a panel with 2 surgeons, a systems engineer from Johns Hopkins and a medical ethicist who would not stop circling back to neural implants. I talked about our calibration suite, how real-time feedback made a difference, and how mentorship was the only reason I ever figured out how to build anything in the first place. Afterward, the crowd broke apart, drifting toward the lobby coffee stations. Jennifer and I found a quiet corner by the windows, nursing lattes that tasted like wet cardboard, trying to catch our breath. She was texting Tyler a picture of the plaque when I noticed her. Young woman, maybe 20, dark blazer, sensible flats, clutching an application folder against her chest. She had that look I remembered from years ago, the mix of nerves and determination, like she could not afford to walk away. She came right up, eyes locked on me. "Mr. Bennett?" she asked, voice low but steady. "I was referred to your mentorship program by Rebecca Harrison." I blinked once but kept my face neutral. "She's in our coding division now," I said, earning her place. The girl's shoulders sagged with relief. A small smile cracked through. "Thank you for the chance. I am part of the first-gen cohort from Spring." I shook her hand. "Glad you made it. Keep building. Do not wait for permission." Her head bobbed fast. "I will not." Then she turned and melted back into the crowd of booths and branded banners. Jennifer slid her hand into mine, leaned against my shoulder, eyes on the busy floor. "You know you changed more than just the work, right?" she said softly. I looked out at the skyline, sunlight breaking through the clouds. The city buzzed below with people who would never know the fights we had to survive to stand here. I nodded. "Took me long enough." She squeezed my hand. That was enough. That evening, the sun dropped low over our backyard, golden light catching the sprinkler mist while Tyler tore through it barefoot, laughing like the world had never been cruel. His soaked shirt clung to his chest, hair plastered down, face bright with joy. Jennifer stood at the grill, humming to whatever was on the speaker, salmon sizzling beside asparagus. She moved with practiced ease, brushing on glaze, flipping fillets, coaxing flavor like a conductor pulling music from an orchestra. I sat near the patio edge with a steel bowl of peas in my lap. Snap, pop, drop. The rhythm kept my hands busy while the calm wrapped around us. My phone buzzed once on the chair arm. Her name. Another email. I tapped the screen, turned notifications off, and set it face down. No reason to read it. No reason to answer. "Dad! Catch!" Tyler shouted. A soggy foam ball smacked my chest before bouncing to the ground. He was laughing before I even scooped it up. "You trying to knock me over?" I called back. "You said you used to play," he grinned. Jennifer glanced over with that teasing smile. "Still got those hands?" "Barely," I muttered, tossing it back. He caught it clean and spun like he had just won the World Series. The sprinkler hissed behind him. The grill flared once before Jennifer dropped the heat and slid the last fillet onto a wooden tray. The air filled with citrus, smoke, and cracked pepper. We carried everything inside. Tyler wrapped in a towel, still buzzing, peppering Jennifer with questions about photosynthesis between bites. She handed him a grape popsicle for dessert, and he crowned her Coach Mom like it was the greatest title ever invented. Later, I checked on him, asleep with a comic book half open across his chest, hair still damp, mouth slack with dreams. I closed his door, patted down the hallway, and stepped back outside with the last of my lemonade. The yard glowed in the quiet. Some folks spend their lives going back, chasing old grudges, trying to settle debts that never really close. I did not go back. I kept moving forward. To hear the next story, click the box on the left. And as always, thank you for watching.